Unshakable mind, the key to invincibility in life. Welcome to Live Stoic, Live Strong. Have you ever noticed how the softest rain can stir the deepest emotions? Not a storm, just a whisper from the sky. Or how a simple cup of coffee, held between your palms, can feel like a shield against the chaos outside. What if I told you the difference between peace and panic lies not in what happens to you, but in how your mind receives it? You stand quietly by the window. The world beyond the glass is turning gray. A soft rain begins to fall. Not loud, not angry, just a steady drizzle that feels more like a gentle reminder than a disruption. In your hand, a warm cup of coffee breathes out slow tendrils of steam. You watch the droplets gather, slide, disappear. Rain can drench your clothes, sure. But it only chills your soul when you let it creep into your thoughts. Life works in the same way. The setbacks, the unpredictability, the heartbreak, they are like passing showers. They are external. They hold no lasting power unless you open the doors of your mind and invite them in. And how many times have you done exactly that? Broken down, not because life hit too hard, but because your inner walls weren't strong enough to hold. Just imagine for a moment. If you could master your thoughts, remain still in chaos, stay grounded when emotions swirl, what then could truly harm you? The world outside holds no true authority over a mind that is steady. A well-trained inner world is the most unshakable fortress there is. Learning to respond rather than react. To choose calm over panic. This is not just wishful thinking. It is the foundation of Stoic practice. As the philosopher Epictetus wisely said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That quote isn't just poetic. It's a map. A guidepost on the journey to mastering the mind. And it all begins with one simple but profound idea. The dichotomy of control. The rain continues outside, each droplet tapping the awning with a patient rhythm. A subtle reminder, you don't control the rain. But look at your hands. They're wrapped around something warm. That contrast, the chill outside versus the warmth inside, mirrors the Stoic truth. While we cannot command the world, we can command our response to it. This principle, knowing what's in your control and what isn't, is the root of all Stoic wisdom. It sounds simple, but living it? That's the real challenge. As Epictetus put it, some things are up to us and some things are not. Stop and let that sink in. Some things are up to us, some things are not. So why do we exhaust ourselves trying to change what we can't touch? We lose sleep over what others think, over job interviews, over whether someone will text us back. We chase certainty in a world that was never designed to give it. The anxiety doesn't come from the events. It comes from our refusal to accept our lack of control. Let me tell you about Jack, a final year university student, standing at the threshold of adulthood. Years of hard work have led him to one moment, an interview with his dream company. He prepares meticulously, does everything within his reach. But what happens next? That we'll uncover in the next chapter, as Jack's story brings the dichotomy of control to life, where philosophy meets reality, and the mind learns its first true lesson. Earlier, we left Jack at a pivotal moment. The interview done, the waiting just beginning. He had done everything within his control. But what about what comes after? Jack had studied the company thoroughly. He had immersed himself in its culture, memorized its mission statement, read every recent press release. He practiced answering common interview questions, rehearsed in front of the mirror to perfect his tone, his posture, even his subtle expressions. When the day arrived, he walked into that room, prepared, composed, ready to give it his all. And he did. But then, silence. The hours and days that followed were not filled with relief, they were filled with torment. Jack's thoughts spiraled. He replayed every word, every pause. Did he smile too much? Too little? Was that one answer too vague? Did the interviewer raise an eyebrow? Or was that just in his head? Sleep began to slip away. His appetite dulled. His mind, which once felt sharp and focused, now played tricks on him. Why? Because the outcome, something he once believed he could control, was now in someone else's hands. It belonged to the hiring committee, the preferences of other candidates, even the interviewer's mood that day. Jack's grip was tightening on something he could no longer hold. And that is where the true struggle began. Not with the interview itself, but with the aftermath of uncertainty. This is the moment Stoicism quietly steps in. If Jack had truly embraced the dichotomy of control, he would have recognized one powerful truth. He had already fulfilled his part. He had shown up, prepared, with sincerity and effort. The rest? Out of reach, out of his hands, and therefore, not worth the suffering. Stoicism never asks us to stop caring or to give up. It doesn't ask for indifference. In fact, it demands the opposite. It asks for ownership. Real, radical ownership over our behavior, our choices, our words, our emotional responses. But once we've done all we can, it then teaches us a rare kind of strength, the strength of letting go. Because life, as we all know, won't always bend to our will. Things will slip through the cracks. Plans will unravel. Outcomes will veer off course. And that's not a flaw in the system. That is the system. The key is this. Once you learn to anchor yourself in your own effort, just your part, an enormous weight lifts from your chest. Anxiety begins to fade. Not because the world gets easier, but because your mind becomes clearer. When you truly understand where your responsibility ends, you no longer punish yourself for things that were never yours to carry. You stop chasing ghosts in your memory. You stop asking what if, when you already did everything you could. No emotional storm can uproot a person who stands firmly in the knowledge, I've done my part. The rest, I've release. But here's the problem. No one teaches us this. Not in school. Not on social media. Even the advice we get from loved ones is often outcome obsessed. Did you get the job? Did they like you? Did it work out? We're conditioned to measure success by results, not by the integrity of our effort. Stoicism doesn't scream to be heard. It whispers, soft but clear, come back to yourself, your behavior, your choices. That's your real job in this life. This isn't avoidance. It's liberation. It's how we learn to place our full attention on what we can influence and gently set down what we can't. It's how we keep that quiet warmth in our soul, even when the world outside feels cold, like a slow, persistent rain. And now, once we've understood the power of letting go, we take the next step, learning how to turn our challenges into training. Because what if every obstacle wasn't a wall, but a weight? A weight meant to strengthen the soul. Let's step into that idea. One breath, one hardship, one lesson at a time. Earlier, we uncovered the power of letting go, how clarity over what you can and can't control lifts the burden of unnecessary suffering. Now, let's explore what comes next. How to transform adversity into strength. A failure, once seen as a full stop, becomes something entirely different when viewed through the lens of a trained mind. It stops being the end of the road and begins to reveal itself as a message, a signal that there's still a lesson waiting for you to learn. Take the story of Allison Felix, the iconic American track and field athlete. To many, she represents speed, gold, and glory. But her real legacy lies in something far deeper: resilience, and a profound ability to reinvent herself in the face of overwhelming challenge. In 2016, just months before the Olympic trials for Rio, Felix suffered a serious ankle injury. She was over 30, an age when many athletes begin to consider retirement. The headlines could have easily read the end, but Felix didn't see it that way. She didn't wallow in regret or curse her luck. Instead, she shifted her mindset from competing to rebuilding. She didn't just focus on healing. She dove deeper, strengthening the tiny stabilizing muscles that most athletes ignore. She improved her flexibility. She meticulously refined the mechanics of her stride. With her team, she reassessed her entire race strategy, opting for a smarter, more controlled, endurance-driven style rather than risky sprints. This wasn't just recovery. This was reinvention. And the results? Astounding. She went on to win more gold medals at the 2017 and 2019 World Championships. Then, in 2022, she retired with 11 Olympic medals, becoming the most decorated Olympian in track and field history. Her success didn't come despite the injury. It came because she used the setback as a tool for transformation. That's the core of Stoic resilience. When the mind isn't trained, adversity feels like a wrecking ball. It shatters confidence, fuels doubt, and clouds clarity. But when the mind is trained, adversity becomes the weight you lift. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What lesson is buried inside this moment?" That shift, subtle, powerful, is everything. Imagine this. You get rejected after a job interview. It stings. Maybe you feel embarrassed, deflated. That pain can stay with you for days. But if you take a breath and ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" you might discover that you didn't research the company enough. Maybe your communication lacked confidence. Or maybe, just maybe, that opportunity wasn't the right fit for you right now. Every setback contains seeds of wisdom if you're patient enough to look for them. And make no mistake, this habit of reframing doesn't happen overnight. Just like building muscle takes consistent pressure and repetition, mental strength grows under stress. But here's the critical point. Don't let adversity define you. You define the adversity. That's the art of reframing. That's when the obstacle becomes the path. Not because the universe promised a happy ending, but because you chose to see pain as preparation. Stoicism never sugarcoats life. It doesn't offer magical comfort or empty optimism. Instead, it demands discipline, clarity, and courage. It teaches you to face hard truths without flinching and still move forward. You don't grow because life becomes easier. You grow because you learn to meet difficulty with development. Remember Marcus Aurelius's timeless words, "What stands in the way becomes the way." It's easy to quote, far harder to live. To embody it, you must turn every stumble into a stepping stone, every failure into feedback, every ordinary day, good or bad, into a training ground for your mind. Struggling? That's good, because the next step is learning to practice these ideas, not just understand them. Let's explore how to turn philosophy into action, how to train your mind day by day, like a muscle built through use. In the last section, we explored the power of reframing, how setbacks, when viewed differently, become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. But while reframing helps us recover after something happens, what if we could strengthen our minds before the storm even hits? That's where a different kind of mental training comes in, something the Stoics called negative visualization. It may sound strange at first. After all, we've been told our whole lives to stay positive, to visualize success, to focus on the good. But what if true mental resilience came not from avoiding unpleasant thoughts, but from facing them deliberately, before they become reality? This is the third pillar of Stoic practice, negative visualization, imagining the worst so you can live your best. Take a deep breath. This is your test, your real-life training ground. Every disappointment, every delay, every fear is a chance to practice. Write down the lesson, let it settle in your heart, and then keep moving forward. Stronger, calmer, wiser. That is the heart of reframing. But again, reframing comes after impact. Negative visualization, on the other hand, is your armor before the battle. It's not pessimism. It's not about living in fear. It's about mental preparedness. It's about asking, what if it all goes wrong? And answering calmly, I'm ready. It may feel unnatural, even alarming. But the Stoics knew that by imagining the worst, you actually remove its power over you. And modern leaders have applied this timeless wisdom with stunning results. Consider the story of Blue Bottle Coffee, one of America's most celebrated specialty coffee brands. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, they were thriving, expanding aggressively into Tokyo and Seoul, preparing to enter Europe. Stores were bustling, media buzz was glowing, investors were enthusiastic. Everything seemed unstoppable. Then, like a wave crashing onto calm shores, COVID hit. Lockdowns froze their entire retail operation. Shops closed. Foot traffic vanished. Many similar businesses folded. But Brian M.I., CEO of Blue Bottle, didn't panic. He didn't wait for answers. He returned to a fundamental Stoic truth: prepare for the worst. With his leadership team, he restructured the company from the ground up. They stripped away excess. They rolled up their sleeves. Literally, they packed coffee by hand in a warehouse. They trained staff like elite operators. They filmed content manually. They didn't wait for a new normal. They mastered the abnormal. Why? Because in their minds, they had already lived through the crisis long before it arrived. This wasn't just savvy business strategy. It was Stoic wisdom in motion. They practiced negative visualization. They imagined loss, disruption, and failure, not to scare themselves, but to prepare. When the world reopened, Blue Bottle didn't just recover. They surged ahead. This mindset may sound bleak on the surface, but it's anything but hopeless. It's liberating. Why? Because nothing surprises a mind that has already walked through the fire in its imagination. Stoicism doesn't tell you to expect the worst and be miserable. It tells you, hope is not a plan, preparation is. When you imagine losing your job, your status, even the people you love, not in a dark, obsessive way, but with clarity and awareness, something beautiful happens. You begin to cherish the present more. Your days feel richer, your words become kinder, your time more meaningful. As Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and philosopher, once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, and say and think." This is not meant to frighten you. It's meant to awaken you, to help you live without delay, to love without hesitation, to appreciate what you have, because none of it is promised tomorrow. In practice, many Stoics began each morning with a simple mental exercise. What if I lost it all? My job? My reputation? Someone I love? Not to invite pain, but to invite perspective. It grounds you. It makes every moment more vivid, every smile more sacred, every touch more tender. And now, with this mental armor in place, we're ready to look at the final piece of the puzzle: daily practices, how to live Stoicism, not just learn it. Let's explore what you can do today to train your mind like a Stoic. In the last part, we explored negative visualization, how imagining potential loss can awaken deeper presence and appreciation. Now, let's take that wisdom one step further. What if you didn't just imagine discomfort, but chose to face it on purpose? At first, the feelings that arise are heavy, unsettling, even painful. But over time, we learn something remarkable: to sit with that discomfort, not as an enemy, but like an old friend, not to let it consume us, but to allow it to teach us, to guide us toward living with sharper awareness, deeper gratitude, and greater strength. This isn't about living in fear. Quite the opposite. It's about building strength by stepping into fear before it arrives. Think of a warrior in training who practices with weights heavier than what he'll ever carry in battle. Why? So that when the real moment comes, he's ready. Every challenge feels lighter because he's already moved through worse in training. And here's the profound insight: when you visualize the worst-case scenario in advance, you begin to transform your emotional responses. You stop being ruled by your feelings. You stop spiraling. Instead of panicking when life throws a curveball, a quiet thought surfaces. I've seen this before. You respond, not out of instinct, but with intention. You pause. You breathe. You choose. Someone once asked, "Doesn't thinking about bad things make you a negative person?" The answer? If you're doing it to avoid reality, yes. But if you're doing it to strengthen your mind, to sharpen your perception, to embrace reality as it is, then the result is quite the opposite. You become more alive, more grounded, more grateful. While the average person walks through life hoping everything will go well, the Stoic quietly trains themselves to stay grounded even when things fall apart. That is the real difference. When you train your mind to accept the worst, even if only in imagination, you give yourself a gift most people never experience. Right pointing arrow, the power to live without fear. Right pointing arrow, the freedom to let go of false expectations. Right pointing arrow, the peace of meeting reality on its own terms. This kind of freedom is the true foundation of an unshakable inner life. So what can you do? Take just a few minutes each day. Close your eyes. Imagine tomorrow you lose something that matters to you deeply. A job, a person, your health, your freedom. Don't run from the thought. Sit with it. Let it settle. And then, open your eyes. Look around. Notice the ordinary. A phone call you can still make. A quiet afternoon you still get to enjoy. A simple meal shared with someone you love. You're living right now in the presence of something you once thought you couldn't bear to lose. And suddenly, you'll begin to live differently, more fully, more gratefully, more awake. What about you? Have you ever tried negative visualization? What are you most afraid to lose? Share it in the comments. Sometimes, simply naming the fear is the first step to valuing what you already have more deeply. Now that we've prepared the mind through awareness and visualization, we move into the next stage of training: voluntary hardship, doing difficult things on purpose. Previously, we explored the power of voluntary hardship, the practice of choosing discomfort, not for punishment, but for preparation. Now, let's go deeper into what that practice builds: spiritual responsibility, the Stoics' calm amid chaos. Because when adversity arrives, and it always does, You face a choice. You can snap, blame, react, or you can pause, breathe, respond. That pause is everything. And while it's not easy, it can be trained. The Stoics called this kind of presence spiritual responsibility. No blaming, no panicking, no pointing fingers at fate or fortune. Just standing firm, like a deeply rooted tree in the middle of a raging windstorm. The wind may howl, the rain may pour, but the tree doesn't move. Not because the storm is weak, but because the roots are strong. Thank you for staying with Live Stoic, Live Strong. It means you're seeking more than words. We're here for that journey with you. A rainstorm doesn't ruin your entire day unless you let it. A harsh comment doesn't define who you are unless you believe it. Life is full of unpredictable events, unfair moments, people who misunderstand you, delays, loss, conflict. But here's the truth. The world will always contain chaos. Your mind, if well trained, can remain your kingdom, a protected place where you decide how to respond. And if you've already trained yourself, if you've walked 8 kilometers in the early morning cold, like Jack Dorsey, former CEO of Twitter, used to do, then when real adversity strikes, your nervous system won't freeze. It won't flinch, because it's been here before. Dorsey said he walked to work each week not to stay fit, but to remind himself of something deeper. That comfort is not a right. It's not a default. It's a luxury. And once you stop depending on comfort, once you stop expecting the world to be soft and predictable, you become free. In an age where everything is optimized for ease, choosing hard things might seem foolish. But that's exactly what gives the practice its power. You could spend your whole life avoiding discomfort. Or you could train yourself to become unshakable. Not to impress anyone, not for applause, but because something inside you wants to be stronger than you were yesterday. No one sees you waking up at 5 a.m. No one cheers when you walk instead of ride. No one applauds when you choose the stairs, the cold shower, or the harder path, but you know. And that knowing, that quiet, steady knowing, is the foundation of real strength. This isn't about being extreme. Voluntary hardship can take many forms. It might be physical, like walking farther, lifting heavier, eating simply. But often, the hardest challenges are emotional. For some, the real test is right-pointing arrow, saying no to something inappropriate. Right-pointing arrow, speaking the truth in a difficult conversation. Right-pointing arrow, sitting in silence without checking your phone for an hour. Everyone has their own threshold. What matters is this: choose something difficult. Do it consistently. And don't wait for validation. This practice doesn't promise invincibility. Life will still surprise you. But it does promise this: when challenges come, you won't be shocked. When everything seems to crumble, you won't collapse, because you've been preparing in quiet, unseen ways. And even if no one noticed your training, the results will speak for themselves, in the calmness of your breath, in the steadiness of your voice, in your refusal to break, even when the world bends. So now we reach a deeper question. If you've trained for hardship, if you've endured discomfort, can you go one step further? Can you move beyond tolerating adversity and actually learn to love it? That's the next beautiful, yet radical Stoic ideal. Amor fati, the love of fate. In the last section, we asked a powerful question. Can we move beyond enduring hardship to actually loving it? Now we begin to answer that question with one of the most profound Stoic ideas. Amor fati, the love of fate. This isn't about blind optimism. It's not about pretending pain is pleasure. It's about meeting life exactly as it is, especially its darkest corners, and saying, "This too, I welcome." Take J.K. Rowling, for example. There was a time when she couldn't even afford to pay her electricity bill. She sat in a cold flat, manuscript in hand, heart full of hope, but reality full of rejection. Her work had already been turned down by 12 publishers. Each rejection letter felt like a dagger to her dream. Any one of those moments could have been the end. But she didn't walk away. She didn't curse her fate. She didn't beg the world to be easier. Instead, she turned every no into fuel. She kept writing. She rewrote chapters, sharpened her language, deepened her characters. Because she wasn't just enduring failure, she was using it. And that is the spirit of Amor Fati. The manuscript that was once unwanted became Harry Potter, a story that didn't just change publishing, it touched the lives of millions. But it was forged in fire. A fire she chose not to run from. Amor Fati is not just a philosophical idea, it's a way of living. It's the decision to love fate, especially the parts that most people run from. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who lived through illness, loneliness, and relentless criticism, wrote, "Amor Fati, my formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different. Not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." This isn't about passive acceptance or giving up. Nietzsche wasn't saying, "Oh, well, that's just how life goes." He was inviting us to actively embrace what happens, even the pain, as if it were exactly what was meant to be. This mindset is also one of the cornerstones of Stoicism. It was practiced every day by Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who faced plague, betrayal, war, and constant personal loss. Yet, in his journal, what we now call Meditations, he wrote not with bitterness, but with grace and clarity. He once said, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." Think about that. To the Stoic, suffering doesn't block the path. It feeds the fire. Like dry wood tossed into a flame, adversity becomes fuel. But let's be honest. How do you love adversity when it feels like it's breaking you? The answer isn't emotional. It's discipline. The Stoics didn't love hardship because it felt good. They loved it because it was real. Because it was unavoidable. And because within it, they found something no soft moment could offer: growth. Every rejection, every illness, every broken plan is a reminder. This moment is not yours to control, but your response is. That's why the dichotomy of control remains the bedrock of Stoic thought. But Amor Fati goes even further. It's not just tolerating what you can't change. It's welcoming it. Welcoming it as if it were hand-delivered for your evolution. So next time you face something difficult, pause. Don't rush to get over it. Don't numb it or wish it away. Look it in the eye. Ask yourself, if this pain were a gift in disguise, what would it be trying to teach me? Just like Rowling once said in her now famous Harvard commencement speech, "It is impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all." Soul strength isn't built through theory, it's earned through trial and reflection. One simple way to practice Amor Fati is through a daily ritual, a short journal, not about what went right, but about what went wrong. Not long. Just one honest sentence a day. Right pointing arrow, "Thank you for firing me, because that's how I found my real path." Right pointing arrow, "Thank you for breaking my heart, because that's how I learned to stand alone." Right pointing arrow, "Thank you for the storm, because it taught me to anchor deeper." These aren't words of defeat. They're declarations of inner freedom. And once you begin to love even the fire, the final Stoic secret opens to you. Memento mori. The art of remembering that life doesn't last forever. After practicing Amor Fati, learning to embrace even the darkest moments of life as fuel for inner growth. Another question emerges. How do we anchor that mindset, day after day? The answer is surprisingly simple and ancient. Journaling. At first, this practice may feel a little awkward, even forced. But just like going to the gym, your mind needs time to adjust, to stretch, to lift new ways of thinking. You're not journaling to impress. You're journaling to grow stronger, to see light in the dark, to notice how you show up, even on the days you feel lost. Pain is no one's favorite companion, but if you sit with it, not rush through it, it becomes something profound, a silent teacher. It doesn't shout or scold. It simply waits. And if you're willing to listen, it teaches you how to hear yourself again. And here's the truth. When you begin to love the parts of yourself you used to avoid, your fear, your regret, your shame, you become unshakable. Not because storms stop coming, but because now you know how to walk through them with gratitude. Have you ever gone through something painful only to look back and say, "Thank you"? Try it. In the comments below, write one line. "Thank you, because it helped me." You never know. Your sentence might be the light someone else needs. 6. Journaling. Talking to yourself. It's raining outside. I sit quietly by the window. The rhythm of raindrops taps against the roof. Gentle, steady, like the breathing of a day fully lived. On the table beside me, a warm cup of coffee, and a notebook I always carry. It's not a dramatic diary. It's not filled with flowery words or poetic lines. It's just a space, a sacred one, where I talk to myself, just as Marcus Aurelius once did. Each evening, this Roman emperor would take time to reflect. He wasn't writing for history. He wasn't writing for anyone else. He wrote to adjust his internal lens, to separate illusion from truth, to hold himself accountable, to ask, right pointing arrow, what did I do today? Right pointing arrow, how did I respond to adversity? Right pointing arrow, what can I do better tomorrow? This quiet ritual didn't make Marcus immune to pain, but it kept him clear, focused, and grounded. Even through wars, betrayal, and loss, he asked himself questions we should all ask. Right pointing arrow. What part of this is within my control? Right pointing arrow. What part isn't? That's Stoicism distilled into its purest form, captured not in volumes, but in a few honest lines, a compass for the soul. Now imagine this. A sales representative spends a week chasing a major client. He's hopeful, persistent, pouring his energy into the pitch. Then, rejected. Deal lost. Frustrated and exhausted, he doesn't reach for a drink or rant in a group chat. Instead, he opens his journal and writes 3 lines. The client declined because they weren't convinced of the product's value. I'm disappointed and feeling discouraged. It's not the rejection that hurts, but how I interpret it. I can control my ability to improve my listening skills. That's it. 3 lines. But in those lines, he transformed a failure into a foundation. 3 months later, that same representative became the top performer on his team. Not by chance, but because of those quiet, honest nights with himself. Journaling doesn't require you to be a writer. You don't need a dramatic life or a fancy notebook. You just need a willingness to pause and tell yourself the truth. Because when your thoughts stay in your head, they spiral. Emotions twist them. Everything feels bigger than it is. But when you write them down, something shifts. You slow down. And when you slow down, you begin to see clearly. Over time, journaling becomes a gym for the soul. Each sentence is a weight lifted, lifting your awareness, your self-discipline, your ability to respond wisely instead of reacting emotionally. You may not notice change tomorrow or the next day, but just like a strong body is built one representative at a time, a resilient mind is built one honest sentence at a time. And perhaps most importantly, journaling helps you step back from the emotional noise and begin to see yourself more clearly. Because clarity is the beginning of mastery. Now that we've laid this quiet, personal foundation, what does it mean to apply Stoicism in everyday life? That's what we'll explore next. Earlier, we discovered how journaling offers more than just a space for thoughts. It becomes a mirror for the soul. A place where reflection builds clarity, and clarity becomes quiet strength. Now, we go deeper into that transformation, because when you write, you're no longer just the person drowning in chaos. You become the one observing the chaos. You take a step back from the noise. You become the witness to your own experience. And in that shift, from reaction to observation, you unlock something powerful: perspective. That's what the Stoics teach. They don't tell you to erase your emotions or pretend they don't exist. They remind you not to hand over the steering wheel to them. And journaling? Journaling becomes the co-pilot, the quiet companion who gently nudges you back on course every time life tries to spin you out of control. There's something fascinating about this in today's world. In an age where nearly everyone is writing to be seen, to be liked, journaling is almost rebellious. You write for no one, no audience, no applause, no filters. You write not to go wider, but to go deeper. Not to escape into the world, but to return to yourself. And that's where real strength is born. Because nothing, no setback, no insult, no failure, can truly harm you if your mind has been trained to observe rather than react. That's what journaling does. Day by day, sentence by sentence, it builds the quiet foundation of a powerful inner world. If you're unsure how to start, keep it simple. Every night, just write 3 lines. What happened today? How did I feel about it? What would a Stoic see in this? That's it. No pressure. No perfection. Just honesty. Do it as Marcus Aurelius once did. Not for the world, but for yourself. You'll be surprised how those 3 small lines begin to shape your decisions, your mindset, and eventually, your life. And here's the beautiful truth. If writing is a way to have a conversation with yourself, then there's another level beyond it. A conversation with the world. Because Stoicism doesn't stop at you. It doesn't end at inner peace. Once your inner foundation is stable, the real question becomes, now that I'm grounded, how can I serve? The Stoics didn't believe in isolation. They believed in connection. And that brings us to the final piece of this journey, perhaps the most expansive and misunderstood of all Stoic principles. Sympathia, the spirit of interconnectedness, of service, of living as part of something greater than yourself. You've been quietly strengthening your own mind. Now imagine a world where everyone did that. What would life look like if inner resilience wasn't just personal, but collective? That's what we'll explore in the final chapter. 7. Sympathia. Connecting and serving the community. Previously, we explored sympathia, the Stoic idea that strength is not isolation, but connection. That once your inner world is steady, the next step is to reach outward, to become a force of calm in the chaos. Now let's take that idea further. Not in theory, but in life. This shift requires more than thought. It calls for a new way of seeing. From me versus them to us. A shared human experience of hardship, of healing, of rising through it all together. Let me take you to a small, remote town in the mountains of Kentucky. Flash floods had just swept through the area, tearing apart roads, water lines, and power systems. Entire neighborhoods were cut off. No national news covered it. No celebrities tweeted about it. But something extraordinary happened. A group of students, not part of a nonprofit, not backed by sponsors, gathered their own savings. They bought clean water, canned food, and medical supplies. Then, in a beat-up pickup truck, they drove straight into the devastation. The roads were still dangerous. Landslides blocked sections. So they did the only thing they could. They carried every box. By hand. One box at a time. Passing them person to person, house to house. That's where I met Jalen, a second-year nursing student. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His hands were raw from lifting. And yet, he smiled. I watched as he gently placed 2 large water jugs on the porch of an elderly woman's home. She whispered, "Thank you, dear." And Jalen looked at me and said, "Every time she says that, it's like the pressure lifts. Honestly, it feels better than passing a tough exam." That sentence wasn't crafted for a, quote, wall. But it was stoicism in action. Raw, real, quietly powerful. Because giving doesn't drain you, it builds you. Helping others is strength training for the soul. It's how we keep from being swallowed by the helplessness of the world. And no, it doesn't contradict the Stoic idea of focusing only on what you can control. In fact, it affirms it, because helping someone is a choice, a conscious decision to plant light in dark soil. In doing so, we aren't just easing someone else's burden. We're anchoring our own minds against fear, bitterness, and meaninglessness, forces that creep in far too easily in this noisy, overwhelmed world. And don't get me wrong, you don't have to launch a nonprofit or donate your life savings. Stoic service isn't about scale. It's about sincerity. Right-pointing arrow. One career tip to someone who's feeling lost. Right-pointing arrow. 1 bag of groceries dropped off, no explanation needed. Right-pointing arrow. 1 honest, uplifting message left in someone's inbox. That's enough. Because what matters is not the size of your action, but the consistency of your intention. So here's a small challenge. Once a week, do something selfless. Not for likes. Not for credit, but to prove to yourself that your kindness has weight. This is your mental resistance training. Because just as muscles grow from lifting, your inner strength grows from giving, especially when no one expects it. To live with steadiness doesn't mean turning away from the world. Sometimes, true strength is choosing to lift someone else, even while you're still healing yourself. The first rain of a new season is about to fall, but if each of us carries a quiet flame of compassion, then no matter how cold the skies become, no one has to shiver alone. We've now explored the 7 timeless tools of Stoicism, from the dichotomy of control to sympathia, the power of service and connection. What have we discovered? That inner strength isn't a wall that protects you from the world. It's a bridge, one you walk across in storms, carrying calm with you. Because Stoicism is not meant to be admired, it's meant to be lived. Clearly, consistently, not once, but every single day. Thank you for your time. If one idea touched you today, come back next time. It may reach deeper. Share this with someone who needs a quiet moment. See you in the next video.